Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Schaub. Welcome back to the channel. I provide listening notes for classic jazz albums, and today we'll be doing John Coltrane's Giant Steps 1960 on Atlantic Records. If you enjoy the channel, please like, comment, subscribe, click the little bell so you'll be notified every time I produce a new video. Links to purchase the vinyl record, I've got the stereo copy from Rhino. It's really good, but there's a link to purchase another version from Acoustic Sounds on vinyl, and you can also stream it via SongWhip on your favorite streaming service. And I also have links to various Wikipedia articles that go into more depth on some of the concepts I'm going to talk about in this video. So Giant Steps, John Coltrane. Coltrane was born in 1926 in North Carolina, raised there, moved to Philadelphia eventually, died in 1967 as a very young man. This was his first album as a leader for Atlantic Records, recorded at Atlantic Studios in New York City. This album has a lot of different genres: post bop, hard bop, modal jazz, ballads. It was a very influential album. It went gold, and it was added to the National Recording Registry in 2004. It was recorded a few weeks after Kinda Blue, where Coltrane was a member of that band playing on the Miles Davis album Kinda Blue. So it's kind of at the same time frame, just coming right after it. A lot of the tracks on this record have become jazz standards. Notice if you get the vinyl, or you can read the liner notes, they're written by Nat Hentoff, and he was a very famous jazz critic, wrote a lot of liner notes for various companies. So I encourage you to read the liner notes. They're very enlightening. One of the things that a lot of these songs have they feature a thing called the Coltrane Changes. Giant Steps and Countdown, two of the tracks on the record, have this harmonic concept that he came up with, kind of. It's a pattern of chord substitutions for a very standard 2-chord, 5-chord, 1-chord progression in jazz. It's movement by major thirds, up or down. I've got a link to a Wikipedia article that goes over what Coltrane Changes are, but I'll talk a little bit more about it when I talk about Giant Steps. So the personnel on this date are John Coltrane, tenor saxophone; Tommy Flanagan on most of the tracks on piano; Wynton Kelly's playing on track 6; Paul Chambers is on bass; and Art Taylor and Jimmy Cobb are on drums. Jimmy Cobb is just on track 6. So side 1 begins with Giant Steps, and then it's the bomb that was heard around the world. When that came out, people put that record on, they were like, whoa, what is that? It's one of those tunes that to this day, if it gets called on a gig, you see musicians do this. Hey, let's play Giant Steps. Everyone will say this. Okay, right. You gear up for it. It's a big thing to play. You're not gonna get through it without sweating. It's a hard tune for anybody to play. It's up-tempo jazz. It's got a cyclic chord pattern. It cycles through 3 key centers, which is something that Coltrane does a lot on this record. It's part of his Coltrane Changes concept. Initially, Wynton Kelly was going to play piano on this, and Coltrane showed Wynton Kelly this. As I've read, Coltrane showed Wynton Kelly this a few weeks before, and Kelly sort of declined to solo on it, and couldn't be there for the actual recording date. So Tommy Flanagan got chosen to play piano on it. And one of the things that is interesting about this tune is I think Flanagan and other musicians thought this was going to be a ballad. It was unrehearsed. Coltrane comes into the studio, puts it on the music stand, and they think it's going to be counted off as a ballad. And he goes 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, da, da. It's flying, and they don't expect it, and they're disoriented. And so Flanagan, if you listen to his piano solo, he kind of melts down. He just sort of starts and stops. And Coltrane just left it and said, nope, that's what we're going with. So if I was Flanagan, I would have been kind of miffed about that. Especially since Coltrane had been soloing it and practicing it as an etude. I mean, Coltrane used this song, and it's thought that he maybe got the changes from Have You Met Miss Jones. The bridge of Have You Met Miss Jones is the same changes as this, and Coltrane used this as a study to work on his various concepts, this concept of moving in thirds. Quincy Jones is on record saying that he thought the tune is based on Nicolas Slonimsky's Thesaurus of Scales and Melodic Patterns. A lot of people were shedding that concept at the time. And because we think it's based on another tune, it's called a contrafact. A musical contrafact is a new composition that's based upon the chord changes of an older or a previous composition, and it just gives it a new melody and arrangement. Coltrane was very interested in taking the saxophone as far as he could to really try to get new concepts out there. He was always pushing and pushing the technical side of the instrument as well as the spiritual and emotional side of the instrument. And he's definitely doing that on Giant Steps. So this becomes a standard that everybody has to learn how to play, especially saxophone players. Second track is Cousin Mary. It's medium swing, written about Coltrane's Cousin Mary. There's an interesting vocal version of this by John Hendricks with a trio. I've got a link to that in the notes. The notes from this talk are actually in the description as well. So definitely check that out. It's a really nice song. Countdown is the next track. It's hard bop. It became a standard. It's another reharmonized contrafact of the song Tune Up by Miles Davis. It's a 16-bar form, again in 3 key centers, and it's got these Coltrane changes. So if you want to follow some of the links to the Wikipedia articles that I've included, you can really go down the musical theory rabbit hole if you want to. So it's kind of fun to do. Okay, so the next song is Spiral. It's a modal jazz tune. I've got a link to an article talking about how George Russell was a sort of creator of this concept. I mean, he didn't create modes or modality or modal soloing or improvisation, but he codified it into a theory. A lot of jazz musicians were into this concept. It's on Kind of Blue, which Coltrane was a part of that session as well. And instead of playing traditional chords, you basically play the chords of a mode, and that way you can switch around the different key centers just by changing, but you're still playing the modal quality as opposed to thinking of it as sort of functional. So far we've got up-tempo jazz, we've got ballads, we've got Coltrane Changes, we have modal jazz. If you're not getting it already, just understand this is a groundbreaking album because of all the different things that it does. So side 2 begins with Saida's Song Flute. It's named after Coltrane's daughter Saida. She loved the flute. It's another modal tune, beautiful melody. The second song is Naima, named after his first wife, Juanita Naima Grubbs. It's a ballad. Coltrane loved to play over ballads. He's got 2 albums of ballads, I believe, and they come out after this. But Naima is a very influential tune, and I mentioned on a previous video, I hear Joe Henderson sort of quoting it in his album Page 1. Not quoting the melody exactly, but sort of the sensibility of what Coltrane is conveying on Naima. And then the last track on the record is Mr. PC. It's written for bass player Paul Chambers. It's a 12-bar blues. And it's just a really nice standard. In fact, all of these tunes have become standards. Any of them could be called in any gig. I've never played Saida's Song Flute, but the rest of them get called all the time. I highly encourage you to get Giant Steps. The vinyl's a little tricky to get because the Rhino sounds good. Some people think it sounds a little too bassy. I think it sounds fine. I just have to turn off the RIA curve, the loudness. The acoustic sounds I haven't heard, but everything by Acoustic Sounds is pretty stellar, so I linked to that one because I couldn't find a link to the Rhino that was in stock. You might be able to find the mono version, which probably sounds a little more coherent than the stereo, but you'd have to dig for that or maybe find an original pressing. And the streams on Spotify sounded fine to me. So I hope you enjoy the music. This one's going to take some time. Come back to it. It's just a fantastic album. Hope you have a great day.